You know that feeling, right? That knot in your stomach when you're watching a movie. And something truly terrible is about to happen on screen, but the character, they've absolutely no idea. You're gripping the armrest, your chest is tight, and you just want to scream at the TV like, "Look behind you, don't open that door." I swear my remote control almost gets thrown across the room sometimes, just, it's trying to warn the character. Well, today we're taking a deep dive into exactly how filmmakers have so precisely engineered that feeling. They've essentially weaponized our nerves to create unforgettable cinematic suspense. This deep dive is based on a fascinating collection of sources titled Suspense Cinema, Hitchcock to Modern, which explores the pioneers and modern masters of this craft. Our mission today is to unpack that psychological contract between the director and you, the audience. We want to understand the core principles that make us willingly subject ourselves to cinematic anxiety, from, the foundational blueprints of Alfred Hitchcock right up to the complex social thrillers of today. Okay, so let's unpack this. This idea that cinematic fear wasn't just stumbled upon, but meticulously engineered. When we talk about suspense, there's one name that immediately comes to mind as, the chief architect. Alfred Hitchcock. He understood that true terror lies not in a sudden shock, like a monster jumping out, but in the agonizing, drawn-out anticipation of its arrival.
It's fascinating how Hitchcock completely transformed audiences. From just passive spectators into active, almost nerve-shredded participants. He really reverse-engineered human anxiety, didn't he? Creating this unique pact with his viewers. And this pact was built on shared secrets and a very careful manipulation of information.
Right. And his most famous analogy for this is the bomb under the table. He'd describe a scene, right? Two people having a totally mundane conversation at a table. Suddenly, boom, a bomb hidden beneath it explodes. That gives you maybe 15 seconds of surprise, a jolt, but narratively, it's pretty inert. Now, contrast that with the alternative. The scene opens with an anarchist placing that same bomb under the table. We, the audience, see him set the timer. We know it's set to go off at 1 o'clock, and there's a clock on the wall. It shows it's 1:45. Then those two people come in and start their same mundane conversation, completely oblivious, just inches away from disaster.
And that crucial shift, that's the engine of suspense. By giving the audience superior knowledge information the characters desperately need but don't have, Hitchcock just fundamentally alters your role. You're not just an observer anymore. You become this unwilling, omniscient accomplice, trapped in this state of agonizing foresight. That innocent chat about the weather becomes unbearable. Every trivial word feels like a maddening waste of precious seconds. You're mentally screaming at the screen.
Yeah, it's the ultimate look behind you moment, but stretched out over minutes.
Exactly. But how does this kind of tension differ from, say, a traditional mystery? Because that's important too.
That's a really key distinction. Hitchcock argued that a mystery is, it's intellectual. The audience knows less than the characters, and you're trying to piece things together, solve a puzzle. Suspense, though, is purely emotional. It's that feeling of knowing more and being utterly powerless to do anything about it.
And there's a crucial corollary to this, something often overlooked. While you absolutely must show the audience the bomb, it shouldn't ultimately go off, or at least not in a way that betrays the audience's emotional investment. Hitchcock actually learned this the hard way with his 1936 film Sabotage. Remember that one?
Oh, right, with the boy in the package.
Yeah, exactly. An innocent boy unknowingly carries a bomb that detonates, killing him. Hitchcock later called it a grave error. He argued it was just too cruel to work an audience into such a state of anxiety, only to deny them any kind of relief. So this tells us something important. The anxiety is only bearable because there's this implicit promise of eventual cathartic release. Suspense doesn't just create fear, it creates the need for catharsis.
So the tension isn't just there to scare us, but it's setting us up for that eventual release.
Exactly.
But what happens if that release doesn't come? Does that break the contract Hitchcock sort of forged with the audience?
Precisely. The anxiety, even when it's extreme, functions within this psychological contract that promises ultimate relief. If that promise is broken too badly, the audience feels manipulated, maybe even betrayed, rather than satisfied. It's why the bomb, almost always gets diffused just in time.
Okay, so if the bomb under the table is Hitchcock's main tactical weapon, then the MacGuffin, that's his grand strategic device, right? Coined by his screenwriter, Angus MacPhail, I think. A MacGuffin is a plot element, Could be an object, a secret, some information that's hugely important to the characters, but, as Hitchcock famously put it, it's something the audience doesn't care about.
Right. It's the engine. It drives the narrative forward, forces characters into action, into conflict, into peril. But thematically, it's often hollow, kind of interchangeable. Think about Psycho. The $40,000 Marion Crane skeels. It gets her on the road, gets her to the Bates Motel. But once she meets Norman Bates, the money becomes totally irrelevant, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely.
Or in North by Northwest, the MacGuffin is just vague government secrets on a microfilm. What secrets? Doesn't matter. Or the uranium hidden in wine bottles, notoriously. The story's never really about the MacGuffin itself. It's about the chase, the paranoia, the romance, the human drama it generates. Its power is in its function, not its form.
But this MacGuffin isn't just a clever plot device, is it?
No.
It seems to dig deeper into another Hitchcock obsession, voyeurism. How do those two connect?
Well, yeah, it creates this deeper kind of meta-voyeuristic layer. The audience, knowing that the character's quest is for something ultimately meaningless, watches them frantically pursue it anyway. This creates a second order of dramatic irony. We're not just watching the story, we're watching the character's misplaced obsession from a detached, almost clinical perspective. This act of watching them want. It's a form of meta-voyeurism that structures the whole relationship between the film and us, the audience. It positions us as these privileged, all-knowing observers of their, well, often futile desires.
Hitchcock's genius wasn't just theoretical, though. He was a master at translating these psychological ideas into a purely visual language. He really honed this skill back in the silent era, where images had to tell the story. He weaponized the camera, didn't he? Especially through his use of point-of-view shots, POV shots. They became key for forging that link between our perception and the protagonist's state.
Absolutely. And his 1954 masterpiece, Rear Window, is the ultimate exploration of this. The entire story is told almost exclusively from the viewpoint of one guy, Jeff Jeffries, stuck in a wheelchair. Hitchcock's camera is mostly trapped there with him, forcing us, the audience, into the role of his co-conspirator in voyeurism.
Right, we're stuck looking out that window with him.
Exactly. We see what he sees, know what he knows, and become implicated in his prying gaze. There's that opening shot, one of the few times our view isn't restricted. It gives us the layout before locking us in. But after that, our vision is his vision, which makes the climax so terrifying. When the suspected murderer, Lars Thorwald, turns and stares directly back at Jeffries, and by extension, at us.
Oh, yeah.
It's a moment of profound terror. That one-way mirror is shattered, and our shared safe space of detached observation is just violently violated.
That's a powerful way to put it, the one-way mirror shattering. So how does this idea of the gaze evolve when we get to a film like Vertigo? A few years later.
Yeah, 4 years later, Vertigo took this theme into a darker, much more critical space. If Rear Window explored the, let's say, ethics of looking, Vertigo examined the pathology of the obsessive gaze. The opening credits signal this shift immediately, right? That woman's eye fills the screen, but it seems to be watching us as those spirals pull us in. It suggests we don't have that invisible safety of Jeffrey's apartment anymore. And the protagonist, Scotty Ferguson, he's not a passive observer like Jeff. He's an active pursuer, driven by this voyeuristic desire before his physical issues. His vertigo is more mental than physical, really. And his gaze becomes a tool of psychological domination as he tries to remake a woman.
Right, remake Judy into Madeline.
Exactly. So where Jeffrey's looking leads to a kind of positive outcome, uncovering a crime, Scotty's obsession is punished with madness and tragedy. It was this early look at how fascination can warp into obsession. It kind of redefined the male gaze in cinema, but also weirdly foreshadowed our modern anxieties about surveillance, the dark side of digital observation, where watching and controlling get blurred.
Hitchcock's innovations, they didn't just stop there, did they? They became this foundational grammar for a whole new generation of filmmakers, especially those in the New Hollywood era, the 1970s. They inherited his language of suspense and adapted it to reflect new cultural anxieties. These directors understood the bomb under the table wasn't some rigid formula, but a flexible principle about information control that could be, translated into new sensory registers.
Yeah. Perhaps the most direct and brilliant evolution of Hitchcock's core principle came not through the eye, but actually through the ear. In Steven Spielberg's Jaws, he masterfully translated the bomb under the table into the realm of sound. The bomb, of course, is the great white shark, but its true power on screen comes from John Williams's iconic two-note musical theme. That simple, menacing cello.
Dun 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 dun.
Exactly. That dun-dun functions as the auditory signal of the unseen threat.
And Spielberg applies Hitchcock's theory perfectly. You, the audience, hear the dun 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 dun, and you know the shark is present. Its proximity, its speed, it's all telegraphed by the music's tempo and volume. But the characters on screen, swimming along, totally oblivious, vulnerable.
It creates a perfect auditory equivalent of Hitchcockian suspense. Just granting you that superior information creates immense tension. And interestingly, the mechanical shark, Bruce, was notoriously unreliable during filming.
Right, I heard that. It kept breaking down.
Yeah, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It forced Spielberg to keep his monster largely off-screen for the first 2 acts, relying instead on the power of suggestion. It really proved Hitchcock's point. What we don't see is often far more terrifying than what we do.
So the problems actually helped make it scarier.
Pretty much. And he amplified it with other classic techniques. Those POV shots from the shark's underwater view, strategic silence before an attack, framing lone swimmers. By weaponizing the non-diegetic score music that characters can't hear, only we can see them. Spielberg showed that Hitchcock's principle wasn't just visual. He'd created the auditory bomb.
Okay, so while Spielberg amplified that unseen external threat, his contemporary Francis Ford Coppola, he internalized it. He crafted a thriller built not on what might happen, but on the agonizing ambiguity of what's already been said. The Conversation, released right in the shadow of Watergate. It's such a chilling study in paranoia, and its suspense comes almost entirely from its sound design and the restricted perspective of the main character, Harry Call.
Yeah, this film is a really significant evolution. Classic Hitchcock relies on the audience having clear, superior information. We know there's a bomb, we know when it goes off. Coppola, though, creates suspense from unclear information. Harry Call gets obsessed with that single, fragmented phrase. He'd kill us if he got the chance.
Such a chilling line, even out of context.
Right. And the suspense builds as Harry painstakingly cleans and reconstructs the audio. Each replay reveals a new, potentially sinister inflection. And you, the audience, you share Harry's anxiety not because you know more, but because you, like him, are trapped in this state of interpretive paranoia, this shared uncertainty about what it all means.
So the suspense shifts. It moves from external certainty, knowing the bomb's there, to this deeply internal uncertainty, which, as you said, perfectly captured the zeitgeist, the spirit of that Watergate era.
Absolutely. And the film's devastating final twist reveals that Harry and us, the audience, we were listening for the wrong thing the whole time. The suspense was a product of misinterpretation. Coppola evolves the genre from knowing what will happen to fearing what might have been meant. It's a much more psychological, paranoid kind of tension.
Okay, fast forward a few decades. David Fincher takes this evolution even further, almost subverting the genre's contract entirely. His 2007 masterpiece, Zodiac, it feels like a direct challenge to that Hitchcockian promise of suspense and release. It's a thriller about the failure of narrative to resolve, and its unique dread comes not from a ticking clock, but from the crushing weight of procedural detail, the psychological horror of an eternally unsolved mystery.
Right. Zodiac just immerses you in the painstaking, frustrating, and ultimately fruitless manhunt for the Zodiac killer. The tension comes from this relentless accumulation of information, ciphers, letters, conflicting testimonies, dead ends. It just leads nowhere. Fincher meticulously recreates the era, but his use of digital cinematography creates this uncanny visual texture. It's hyper-realistic, but feels kind of artificially constructed. It mirrors the investigation's struggle to find truth in all these media traces.
It's interesting how the film's suspense becomes the suspense of obsession itself. The dread isn't just about the killer, but the toll the chase takes on the character.
Exactly. You watch the case just consume the lives of Detective Dave Toschi, journalist Paul Avery, cartoonist Robert Graysmith. Their minds just fray under the weight of this quest for an answer. And while the film does have moments of classic suspense, that terrifying basement scene where Graysmith follows the lead.
Oh yeah, incredibly tense.
Super tense. Claustrophobic framing, unnerving sound. But those moments are embedded in this larger narrative defined by irresolution. The whole film builds tension with no definitive catharsis. The killer's never caught, the mystery's never solved. This denial of closure creates a new, profoundly modern kind of suspense. The horror of ambiguity, the terror of things just not being wrapped up neatly, it reflects a pretty cynical worldview, really.
Okay, let's transition now to a film that seems to synthesize a lot of these ideas beautifully. Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs. It's just a masterclass in tension generated not through action or spectacle, but through conversation and psychological depth.
Yeah, the primary source of that film's suffocating tension is dialogue, and specifically the way Demi films it.
Hmm.
Throughout the film, especially in those pivotal scenes between Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter, Demi uses this signature technique. Tight, direct-to-camera close-ups. It breaks that conventional over-the-shoulder shot we're so used to. When Lecter speaks to Clarice, he often looks right into the lens like he's addressing you. But when Clarice responds, she looks slightly off-camera.
So how does that technique specifically impact us, the viewers, in that moment? What's the effect?
Well, it's a deliberate and incredibly powerful act of psychological invasion. When Lecter, with that unblinking stare and chilling intellect, dissects Clarice's insecurities, he is speaking directly to you. His gaze just penetrates the fourth wall, forcing you into Clarice's vulnerable position.
Wow.
You're not just watching an interrogation, you feel like you're being interrogated, your own psyche laid bare. This visual strategy perfectly mirrors the themes, violation of personal psychological boundaries. Demi aligns your discomfort directly with Clarice's. It creates this unparalleled sense of intimacy and dread.
Yeah, you really feel it.
And the film is fundamentally about a woman navigating a world dominated by the male gaze, right? Demi's camera makes you feel the full weight of that scrutiny.
And the film's climax, the sequence where Clarice hunts Buffalo Bill in his labyrinthine basement, that's just a tour de force of suspense, isn't it? A terrifying application of Hitchcock's information control principle.
Oh, absolutely. It's masterfully orchestrated.
Yeah.
Demi crosscuts between three distinct, unequal perspectives, each with a different level of knowledge. First, you've got Buffalo Bill's perspective. Through his night vision goggles, he has total visual power. He's the all-seeing voyeur, the predator in his element, watching Clarice stumble blindly, complete informational superiority.
Right. He sees everything.
Second, there's Clarice's perspective. Plunged into absolute darkness when Bill cuts the power. She's completely blind. Zero visual info. She has to rely only on her other senses, the sound of a gun cocking, touching a wall, that faint scent of lotion. She's the ultimate victim of informational asymmetry. One side knows everything, the other, nothing crucial.
Terrifying just thinking about it.
And finally, most terrifyingly, there's our perspective, the audience. Through Demi's brilliant cross-cutting, you get the most torturous position of all. You see both perspectives simultaneously. You're locked into Clarice's terrified, sightless experience, feeling her panic, but you're also forced into Bill's predatory, green-hued point of view, watching him stalk her, hearing his breath as he reaches out.
Ugh, yeah, that moment he reaches for her hair.
Exactly. You have total knowledge, but you are utterly powerless. This is Hitchcock's bomb under the table, amplified to an almost unbearable degree. It creates this visceral terror from your omniscient helplessness. It's a perfect fusion of psychological horror and just pure, masterfully executed suspense.
Wow. Okay, so as the thriller has continued to evolve, its grammar, its language has been adapted to explore more contemporary anxieties. Jordan Peele's 2017 landmark film Get Out feels like a real paradigm shift in the genre.
Definitely. Get Out brilliantly reframes that bomb under the table. Here, the bomb is the latent, sinister racism of the seemingly liberal, upper-class Armitage family. The film's unique, potent suspense is generated from the very real anxieties of race and social dynamics in America.
And you, the audience, you're primed by the film's horror cues, right from that chilling opening scene, the black man abducted, Run Rabbit Run playing. You have the superior knowledge that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong here. Meanwhile, Chris, the protagonist, he's trying to rationalize away all those escalating microaggressions and unsettling encounters during the weekend visit.
Yeah, and Peele uses classic suspense tools to weaponize this social anxiety. The tension is built through meticulous visual coding. Like the garden party, Chris is in blue, almost everyone else wears red. It visually heightens his isolation, marks him as the outsider.
I remember noticing that, yeah.
The suspense escalates through conversations that are just subtly off, as the white guests inspect him with this disturbing mix of admiration and objectification, and the sunken place, that state of hypnotic paralysis where Chris can see and hear but has no control. It's such a terrifying visual metaphor for being silenced and marginalized.
So how does this film reshape our understanding of the thriller genre itself? What's the big shift?
Well, Peele posits that for a modern, socially aware audience, the most believable and terrifying bomb is systemic racism itself. The film's suspense is so effective because it taps into a real-world horror. It makes the audience's participation feel less like a cinematic game and more like a reflection of a lived reality for many. By doing that, Peele effectively created the social thriller, this new subgenre where the dread comes not just from individual peril, but from the monstrous nature of a flawed society.
We've taken quite a journey today, haven't we? From Hitchcock's meticulous blueprints, informational control, voyeurism, through its brilliant translation into sound, its internalization as paranoia, its subversion into irresolution, its perfection as a psychological duel, and now its reimagining as potent social commentary. Across this whole lineage, the techniques have changed, but the goal, it seems, has stayed the same. Seize our nerves and hold them in that state of heightened, anxious anticipation.
But here's the crucial endpoint, the thing that's often overlooked with all that tension. Catharsis. Originating back with Aristotle and Greek tragedy, catharsis refers to that purging, that cleansing of powerful emotions through art. In thrillers, the audience's emotional release when the protagonist survives or triumphs. That's the necessary psychological payoff. It makes all that preceding tension not just bearable, but deeply satisfying.
Right.
The greater the buildup of fear and anxiety, the more profound the release.
And that's why we willingly enter this contract with filmmakers, isn't it? We submit to the tension because we crave that eventual relief.
Yeah.
It functions as this safe, controlled environment for us to confront and process our deepest fears, fear of violence, the unknown, losing control, social alienation, all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. This process can actually be seen as a form of emotional hygiene. By experiencing the tension, sometimes almost unbearably, and then getting that powerful cathartic release, you emerge from the dark theater feeling not just relieved, but maybe even cleansed. You might have a new clarity about the very anxieties that were just being exploited on screen.
So the next time you're gripping your seat during a suspense film, maybe ask yourself, are you just being entertained? Or are you actually engaging in this unique form of emotional clarification, letting that unseen bomb help you understand your own deepest fears in a safe, controlled way? What kind of catharsis do you seek from suspense?